Hello and welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm Sherry Duckworth, and joining me today is Miss Jalen Smiley. She is a family recruitment specialist for Covenant Kids. Thank you for coming today, Jalen.
Thank you for having me.
It's so good to have you today, and Covenant Kids does a great service for the community. Can you tell us a little bit about that before we get started?
Sure. We are a foster and adoption care agency. We recruit, train, love on families that are going to take care of children that are coming out of abuse and neglective situations.
It's a big job and an important job, so thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Foster care. There's many reasons why children end up in the foster care system, and I definitely want to hear about some of that today. But how many children in Texas right now are we seeing in the foster care system?
It's about 17,000 children, and the number fluctuates, day to day, depending upon the children and the cases that the caseworkers are working with or the calls that they're getting. But about 17,000 children in the state of Texas.
Wow. And then what about the DFW area?
The DFW area is a little smaller, but still a lot of children, 4,000 children in foster care, but that does include Dallas, Tarrant, and 17 surrounding counties. So as far west as Springtown, Parker County, Denton County, Corsicana, Navarro County, it's a large geographical area.
Now, is there one city or one region within the Metroplex that has a higher number of foster care children?
Dallas County right now has the largest. Dallas and Tarrant maintain the larger number, and they're larger metropolitan areas, but certainly Dallas County has a lot of children.
Now, within the areas, the children who are in foster care, at what point do they are they available for adoption? Because I know that there's a lot of confusion about, fostering a parent, is supposed to be temporary, but a lot of people fall in love with that child and want that child to become their own. So, at what point is that available?
Well, children come into the foster care system and they're placed in a foster home, and they could be in that foster home for up to 12 months. Some children will go home because reunification is the goal in almost every case, if possible. If not with the parents, then with relatives or family, or even a kinship relationship, which might be someone in the community or someone at the church, someone that's had a previous relationship with those children. And when all of those options are no longer available, the state's working very diligently to try to get those children connected or reconnected with family and relatives. When they can't, they will ask the foster parents. They'll make the recommendation to the court to terminate the parental rights, and once that's happened, the child becomes available for adoption. And quite often they will ask the foster parents to adopt, and if they don't have that desire, and that's okay because we need foster parents, the children become legally free or available for adoption. So those are the children that you see on the state's website. All of those children on the TARE, Texas Adoption Resource Exchange, they are available for adoption, and everyone is actively looking for a permanent family for those children.
Now, are there ever children who end up being in foster care until they age out?
Yes, that does happen, and there are several groups and agencies in the community that are trying to minister to those children as well, prepare them for that, because they will age out of care once they graduate from high school or at 19, 20 years of age. I believe a law recently changed where it might even be up to 22, but certainly those older ages, yes, those children will age out of care, and quite often don't necessarily transfer into adult protective services care and are on their own if they don't have family to connect with, or some family, kinship, or just a former foster parent to connect with. They end up homeless a lot of times.
It's so sad because it's such a pivotal time in everyone's life when you're becoming that adult.
Yes.
And to not have that kind of support that you need that is stable. There's so many needs that have to be met.
Yes. There are a lot of needs, but I will say there is a program that the state has in place called PAL, preparing for adult living, getting them interview skills, resume skills, job opportunities, college tours even, because a lot of our children, despite the myths that are out there, care are college bound. And fortunately, the state will pay for their tuition and fees for college. So that's whether they got adopted or not. As long as they were in foster care, they meet that requirement so they can go to college and get a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, even a doctoral degree.
Wow.
Technical school and vocational school is also included because everyone might not meet that criteria, but we want to help serve them to become members of the community.
It's fantastic that they have those options available to them,
Yes.
where they can continue on, they can grow. Just because you're in foster care doesn't mean that you don't get to have a successful
No.
future in your
No,
life.
not at all. Not
so
at all.
I think it's wonderful that they get to see that they do have those opportunities available.
Yes, state college and, any North Texas, UTA, whatever they want to do. And we are encouraging that as much as possible.
That's awesome. Now, obviously, before we get to sending them off to college, they come into the system first, and they can come in obviously at any age.
Yes.
How do most of the children, especially in our region, end up in the foster care system?
Well, a call is actually made to Austin, and then the officials in Austin will determine what county that case or that call is coming from, and then they'll send in an investigator out to do the investigation, find out what's going on. Some children receive family-based services where they actually stay in the home, but CPS is working with that family. The abuse was there, and not excusing that, but not necessarily enough to bring that child out of that home. So CPS works with families like that. But when the child has to come into care, they're placed in a foster home, and it's because of abuse, neglect. Sometimes the neighbors may, they know that children are in the home alone, and it's been for several hours. But I believe that more people are calling that 800 number because the responsibility just doesn't lie with doctors and teachers. It's for all of us if we suspect abuse. And so that's how it starts with the Texas Family Code to decide whether or not that child will actually come out of that home and into a foster home.
Once it's decided, what happens? If you can walk us through, the call has been made, it's been decided. At what point does the child get taken away? What does that look like?
There is a standard. The Texas Family Code is there, so CPS has that plan to follow, and CPS will look at that plan, look at the situation, make that determination. The court is now involved when those children come into that foster home. So as workers, we would get a broadcast or get calls or emails from the placement unit that needs to place a child, and agencies all over the Metroplex have an opportunity to say, I have a foster family, or submit a foster family's name, and then CPS will choose the family that child will be placed with. Upon that time, that's when the clock, if you will, starts for birth families to decide if they want the children back. They have to establish a service plan that the birth family has to work from. And it's not just, okay, I'll do better. It's classes, it's counseling, therapy. They'll have visits at the CPS office that the foster parents will bring the child to, and they'll have that time with their family members. And if they achieve all of the goals on the service plan, then the children will go home. And if not, then that's when CPS has to look at different alternatives for the child.
Which obviously the hope is that they'll finish the classes.
Yes,
The hope is that.
reunification as much as possible. And for some, it's hard to imagine that we're saying, what, place the child back in a crazy situation? No, it is. It made sure that it's healthy. The mom's gotten the services that she needs, or the parents have that. Or if it's not mom and dad, then grandmom or aunt or uncle. I received a call recently from a sister who wanted to take care of her half brother that she didn't even know about until she got the call from CPS. And even though she'd never met him, she wanted to be able to become his legal guardian so he would have that forever connection. So yes, reunification is the goal when it's possible. They're not trying to force families back together, but when it is possible, because that child, no matter what's gone on, still loves mother, still loves dad, and needs those connections to carry throughout their life.
Yeah, I think it's really good, and it's great that that's the goal, to keep that, the reunification in mind.
Yes.
But then again, there's those times where it's not possible.
Right.
and the parental rights, they have to sign them over, and then they are available for adoption. Now, for those parents who get the phone call, because I'm sure it can happen anytime, middle of the night, middle of the day, once you've signed up and you've been accepted to be a foster parent. But in order to get that phone call, what are the steps that have to be taken in order to be put on that list?
Once you go through your training and home study, all of the classes and requirements that the state of Texas has, then your license would be issued and you're placed on an openings list. So when we get that call or email from CPS and you fit that criteria, let's say that you're going to be licensed for children between 5 and 12. So if we get a call for children meeting that description, different levels of care are established for children, which also means what home they would be placed in. But if your family is, meets that requirements and is ready to go, we're going to call you and say, okay, well, we're coming in about 2.5 hours or so, and it's usually going to be the CPS worker, but your agency worker will be there with you as well, so you can kind of get to know what's expected or what information they know about that child at the time, because it's not always a whole lot of information in the beginning, but the training has prepared you for almost anything. So you'll be able to take care of that child. And then they're in your home. They can go to school in your neighborhood because you want them to get into school, get around other children, see a new normal, if you will. And at the same time explaining to them, because they're going to have questions about why are they here, when can I go home, and you're just explaining to them until mommy can get better, this is what the plan is for you now, but we love you, and we don't want to take you away from mommy. It's a fine line that you walk, because you know that their parents are trying to finish out the service plan, and sometimes it doesn't happen, so it makes for interesting conversations for that foster parent. But part of the training that we offer talks about that, because we don't want you to feel like you're not able to take care of the child or know what questions or know what answers to provide. There's a certain part of the training where we talk about that, because there are going to be some hard discussions.
There's going to be some times when, especially the older children, I'm sure, ask very difficult questions. So, it's good to know that there's training for that you will be prepared, that they're not going to blindside you. You've been instructed on how to address these particular issues.
How to address it. And you'll always have your agency worker to support you. So if it gets crazy or you're just, I need a little bit more support, so there's another person saying the same thing. The families don't get trained and licensed and then children are placed and we leave them alone. We're definitely there for support. We encourage our families to become a part of support groups in the area as well, because textbook says ABC, this is the policy, this is the procedure, but having other foster families or adoptive families who are doing this as well kind of undergird you, hold your hands up during this process is very, very important, because you can't just talk to your friends about what's going on with Johnny, because of his privacy, but here's a foster parent that's going to know exactly what you're talking about and can be there to support you when times are getting hard.
That's great. Now, how do we know if we qualify to be a foster parent before we go today? Do we need to have a big house and lots of money?
No, actually you don't. And I know a lot of people think that. There are minimum qualifications for a family. Anybody could really do this. Not everybody should, but anybody could. You just have to be at least 21 years of age. You can be single, married, live in an apartment, a townhome, a condo, an apartment. It's going to have a fire and health inspection done, but we're not looking for big houses and big cars unless you want to take a big sibling group. We're okay with that. But you don't have to have a large space. So really the minimum requirements are there for any family that just has a heart and feels like God is telling them you need to move forward.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you, Jalen Smiley, a family recruitment specialist with Covenant Kids, for coming and talking with us today and for what you do for the community.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for watching today.